Good evening, everyone. Welcome to America's Third Party. I'm David Sponheim, and today is Conspiracy Monday. We are dealing with total collusion manifesting right in front of our very eyes. The government is working like a machine. The wheels of justice are slowly grinding away at Donald Trump's bravado, getting to the points that he's trying to avoid, which would be his financial records. And he doesn't want Don McGahn to testify, which means if the financial records are so important to Donald Trump, there must be some definite guilt in those financial records. And now accountants must turn over Trump's financial records according to a lower court judge. Now, I'm sure Trump is going to try to appeal that, take it to the higher courts, but he's trying to evade everyone from looking at his financial records because they show a connection between his income and the Russian oligarchs. He can't hide it. It's very suspicious to me that Mueller didn't investigate Paul Manafort's second trial either. He had a plea agreement that was breached by Paul Manafort. It never went to trial, which shows me that Mueller may very well be in on this and complicit in this attempt to hide the Russian oligarch money. It goes that deep. Mueller may have been involved. So as we look deeply at the total collusion that is underway and Trump's attempt to obstruct, now telling Don McGahn not to testify, now a judge rules against Trump in a subpoena fight as White House blocks McGahn's testimony. But McGahn went around he had to tell Mueller, and he openly said that Trump was trying to stop the Russian investigation every way he could. And he's willing to testify that, but Trump won't let him because that looks bad. It doesn't look good. I mean, this man has been obstructing from the very beginning. He even had Devin Nunes haul the entire house when the House was dominated by the Republicans. All that information was brought into the White House for Donald Trump's lawyers to look at, which means that Devin Nunes may have been complicit as well. So as the wheels turn back on the Republicans, who are now reeling from the reality that Trump is hiding and acting guilty as hell, the wheels of justice are finally doing their work. And I appreciate that. I really do. Meanwhile, there's some other things happening that are not so good. A young woman, Ashley Massaro, recently died. She was a world wrestling star, and it turned out that Ashley Massaro, according to her affidavit when she sued WWE, included her being encouraged by Vince McMahon not to report that she was drugged and raped by U.S. military staff while on tour in Kuwait. And content warning, this is sickening reading. I'm not going to read it for you, but now she's dead and we're wondering, was she killed? These suicidings don't look normal. I was saying earlier, I don't believe that Anthony Bourdain suicided himself. I believe that he had been approached and harassed by the Hillary Rodham Clinton operatives. And yes, this does stretch all the way to the Hillary camp too. It's a two-party conspiracy basically going on. Hillary's too powerful and Trump is too powerful, and the two parties have become completely corrupt. But Anthony Bourdain had a very interesting reality fact. He had $14 million in net worth prior to his death. After his death, his net worth was $1.5 million. That's all his daughter is going to reclaim. She probably got her check cut already. So it looks to me that somebody held Anthony Bourdain next to his computer and drained his assets before killing him. That means that an open investigation should start immediately on Anthony Bourdain's death. And the fact that he did tweet that HRC operatives were bothering him prior to his death is a very telling sign. We need to look deeper into Asia Argento, her involvement, Harvey Weinstein, Hillary Clinton. All that needs to be opened up. But that's not the big problem right now. The big problem is our country is being controlled by Russia. Yeah. And now Trump is trying to start wars all over the world to try to divert our attention. That's not a good thing. David, Jeannie Buss and former Magic Johnson are watching you. Well, thanks. I hope they are doing well. Yeah, I remember going to the LA Forum in, I think it was 1984, and seeing Magic Johnson throw that 75-foot unbelievable shot right in it was just amazing. He just tossed it 75 feet right into the hoop. And I was going into the snack bar, and I turned around and I looked and I saw Magic Johnson do that. It was the ultimate being there moment, and it is the highlight reel that's played in the NBA loops that they play to advertise the game. 75-foot swish, and it wasn't like a big game changer. It was just he threw that shot from the other end of the court and right through. I had a lot of fun times at the Forum and watching the Lakers. So I hope they do get along, Jeannie Buss and Magic Johnson. Okay, moving on. We've got this this video, or rather this picture here, that describes what happened today. The judge upholds a Democratic subpoena for Trump. Yep, Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings issued the subpoena last month, and now the judge has upheld it. They've got to get the financial records for Trump. The U.S. District Court Judge Amit Mehta ruling delivers a striking blow to the president's efforts to resist Democratic investigations and is certain to give Democrats further legal basis to investigate Trump, his finances, and his presidential campaign. Trump has been obstructing justice from the minute he became president. In fact, two days before Donald Trump became president, the FBI told him that Russia had rigged the election in favor of him. And instead of telling people at the inauguration this fact, he held it inside. He's never openly admitted it. He never openly said those words that Russia helped him to win the election. He's always averted from the accusation that Russia was involved in rigging the election. He called it fake hoax, a Russian hoax. He never really admitted it. And recently in his private phone call that's never ever been in any way written in notes or listened to, his private phone call with Vladimir Putin, he actually didn't even bring up the 2020 election. That's how out of it Trump is on this issue. So it means that Trump is definitely under the control of Vladimir Putin, which puts our country gravely at risk. This is not a time to be sitting back and thinking, oh, well, it'll pass. This David guy, he's so full of crap. He doesn't know anything. He's going to save the world. No, sorry. Trump's ideas he fleeced from our show. He doesn't have any new ideas. He can't think fast on his feet. He doesn't know what's going on. He's being led and directed by Zionists, Russian oligarch Zionists and AIPAC Zionists. He's not leading us toward peace. He's leading us toward war, and it's pretty damn obvious. John Bolton and he have been working diligently. I tweeted about this recently. Bolton and he are working together to create a war environment that cannot possibly be good for America. Let me bring it into the show here. Yes, we're getting a little rain here in the Northwest. It's about time, huh? Actually, we normally get rain at this time of year, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, a war with Iran is Bolton's twisted plan, and Trump is positioning the Navy for conflict, I wrote. And Bolton really is, he's 70 years old. He's the guy who started the Iraq and Afghanistan war upon George W. Bush's request. Thanks, Add the One. Thanks for your vote of confidence. Appreciate it. But this is a pretty interesting story. Michael Burley says how Trump's warmonger-in-chief's trying to drag the U.S. into conflict that would make Iraq look like a tea party. Iran has 4 to 5 times the strength that Iraq had in terms of military capacity, maybe even more. Because we never really found out if the Scud missiles that Saddam Hussein was developing really existed. We know that Iran has the missiles to fire and take out an aircraft carrier. We know that. They say they could easily shoot down an aircraft carrier in a second. So it's a war of words Donald Trump has started, and even our top military advisors said Iran didn't start this. Trump did. Had we taken my position and just not signed the treaty, which would have nullified the treaty, which was the primary thing, not giving them any more support and not giving them the ability to create nuclear weapons, that would have been enough. Barack Obama allowed them to create a nuclear weapon in the treaty. It passed by the voters. The Democrats didn't even know it. Many of them were like, no, we want to just make peace with Iran. We don't care that they can create a nuclear weapon. I actually agree with Trump that we want to stop Iran from creating nuclear weapons, but his method of doing it is extreme, and it will endanger the world if we start a war with Iran. No question about it. And the price of your gas will skyrocket over the summer, I assure you. So I'm really hoping Trump does not let Bolton control the dialogue and start yet another war, his third war that cannot be ended. This ideologue, who is a hard right-wing warmonger, has dominated American politics for so long, it's a shame that he was put in this position. But ironically, Donald Trump had a Russian working for our government as a national security advisor prior to Bolton. Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, was working for Russia for 24 days. And the people that stood up for Michael Flynn ahead of this reality, people like William Barr, our current Attorney General, wrote a letter on behalf of Michael Flynn saying, do not investigate him. That to me is enough to impeach William Barr from the Attorney General position based on his Russian support. We found out after William Barr wrote that letter that Michael Flynn was indeed working for Russia, and we got him out. But now we've got this, which is even worse. Yeah, and I don't think that Obama should ever given that money to Iran. They didn't deserve it, for one. They claim they lost $155 billion due to the economic sanctions imposed upon them. I don't believe that figure is accurate. Now, we do know that their oil supply is limited. Their supply dropped from 2.3 million barrels a month to 1 million barrels a month, which is a significant change due to the economic sanctions Donald Trump is imposing. But it's also breeding contempt with China because now Huawei is being attacked. And Huawei is the premier company that China is very proud of, a 5G company that is was selling to Iran, and consequently Meng, the CFO of Huawei, has been charged with crime, which has put her in a very unfortunate position. And China will no longer engage in trade with the U.S. because of this. Yeah, apparently Google is now saying they're going to be kind of boycotting Huawei, which is very strange. The largest network out there in the U.S. is going to boycott the largest telecommunications 5G network in the world. That's going to be interesting too. So all this is kind of unwinding. Thanks. That's not a problem. You're a heterosexual, Pirate Salty Dog. Yeah. Embrace your heterosexuality. Yeah, your Walmart prices are going to go up, but you guys will still keep buying at Walmart. You know you will. Well, if we're going to be boycotting a country like China, it will affect and impact our economy. But bear in mind, I mean, if you want to go with the idea that Trump is starting a trade war with China, bear in mind there are a lot of other suppliers of TV sets besides China. So don't worry, your LED TVs will be made in Singapore and brought to the U.S. We trade with many other Asian nations, so it's not the end of the world by creating this trade war with China. It does push us to the brink of bad relations, which we had prior to the 70s. Yes, and Hillary Clinton received $150 million in a uranium deal. I know. Or 145 donations to the Clinton Foundation are unsubstantiated, but Hillary Clinton gave 20% of United States uranium to Russia during the Clinton period when she was Secretary of State. In exchange for Clinton Foundation donations, allegations of quid pro quo deal giving Russia ownership of 1/5 of the U.S. uranium deposits in exchange for $145 million in donations to the Clinton Foundation are unsubstantiated. Okay. So it's false. So it wasn't 145. That's not a verifiable fact. But thank you. We know that John Podesta got like 97,000 in that deal, which he dispersed among his family members to not be looking like he's doing anything inappropriate. Him of all people. considering we are opening up more proof that John Podesta may have something to do with Pizzagate. That story's still brewing in the background, by the way. All right, so this guy is warlike attack is not going anywhere. We're already embedded in Iraq and Afghanistan, and apparently this guy takes on the Kissinger approach to politics and just wants to start low-intensity conflicts all around the world, giving us some sort of an edge against our opponents. Well, in this world of heat-seeking missiles and laser technology, I'm not so sure that's a good idea. All right, we've got USS Florida rape lists of female colleagues, military probe. Okay, servicemen of U.S. Navy submarine kept ranked rape lists of women. Wow. The lists were shared on USS Florida guided missile submarine. Found that sexist comments and jokes were tolerated and trust was non-existent. Wow, this goes along with the Ashley Masilla murder. Okay. The sexually explicit list describes various USS Florida females by appearances, characteristic in various sexual acts, and creators of the list wish to perform with them. Captain Gregor Kircher, who was the commanding officer of the sub at the time, was removed from power. I remember that. His last job, August, due to a loss of confidence and poor command climate. Yeah, you think? Fear for safety, Navy submarine kept rape lists. Wow. They ranked the rape lists. This is, pretty intense to think that women are being treated this way and the military is not doing anything to stop it. I mentioned a 3-strike law that I will enforce as president. I'll make it retroactive too. If somebody's in Brig right now or in Leavenworth with multiple rapes, like a man who was charged with raping 29 men and women about 5 years ago under Obama was put in Leavenworth and he's serving a 15-year sentence, I would execute him. We don't want him on the street again. So I will exercise capital punishment against military officers who are engaged in rape, molestation. 3-strike law. If there are 3 known cases where there absolute proof that this happened, will be executed. I'm not a person who's going to take this subject lightly because I can tell you it's a personal issue for me. I've seen too many women and men too who've been violated in my life. Just knowing these people, it's so devastating to think that the perpetrators are still walking free, and that goes with priests as well who are molesting children. This Me Too thing, I really do support the Me Too movement against people who are abusing power, allegedly Harvey Weinstein and others. You know, it's a big problem. It is. I was in a situation, on a personal note, when I used to work in Hollywood and television, I was working on becoming a producer. And I just started out. I met a guy in a production facility that said he wanted to make a really great 2-hour show and sell advertising, talking about a certain area of the LA area and run it on cable TV. And I wanted to produce that for him. So here I was, being the middle guy. I was told to go ahead, take ads out, and he paid for the ads in Variety and another newspaper or publication. Anyway, we had a kind of a cattle call come in for people wanting to be the host, and we interviewed about 50 people. Really. And in the end, I was really happy with the choices we made. I had 2 or 3 of them were really, really talented. And I thought for sure we were going to do this. And this guy, who was a very short Chinese man who had previously told me that he was a heroin addict at one point. I mean, he was in $1 million facility. I had no idea that this guy was the kind of person he was, but he told me that we weren't going to do the show after all. And this is after I dedicated about 30 days of my life to this effort. And he told me we're going to do the show after. I said, why did you do the meeting? Why did we bother with any of this? He said, so he could get laid. So he could get laid. And then he bragged about having sex with 2 of the women. He was ugly too. I felt bad for the women. I didn't know which women he had sex with, but I can tell you that was the most egregious act I've ever seen. I saw it up close personal, and I said, I'm out of here. I couldn't believe what I was encountering. It's kind of like a Harvey Weinstein story, but it's even worse. The guy was just this turd. He couldn't get laid. So he puts on a fake show, hires a mid-producer to put together for free on spec. And I was willing to do this for advertising revenue if we sold enough ads to do the show and make it work and make it relevant. I was really gung-ho, but I couldn't believe that this guy had just done it to get laid. Yeah, and I wasn't that upset about getting played because it had been happening a lot in Hollywood. At one time, I was working for a company that said to me, one of the assistants, in fact, the detail guy, the guy with the detailed cars, I'll never forget the day he turned to me. He said, I was out there, putting something away in the back of the set, and he said, "Hey man, you need to buy a gram. If you don't buy a gram from so-and-so, you're going to be fired tomorrow." I said, "I'm not buying a gram of cocaine. I don't do cocaine." He said, No, you don't understand. If you don't buy a gram from so-and-so, you will be fired the next day. I couldn't believe that this is what this guy was telling me. So I went back home, and the next day I was fired. It's like, you got to buy a gram of cocaine to keep your job in Hollywood? I don't do cocaine. I've never done cocaine. I wouldn't do cocaine. And that's pretty much why I left Hollywood, because it's so prevalent in that city. It's sickening. And they use cocaine as power over others. Yes, we got that, Concordia. Yeah, the judge ruled in favor. Yeah, I've got a similar... Well, Daryl, we don't in any way support
Karen,
drug
before
use
we
here.
go, I just want to talk.
So, because you like cocaine is your problem. Okay, let's take a look at this feed.
Talk quickly about Republican Justin Amash. He made news for being the first Republican to speak out and say call for Trump's impeachment on Saturday. What do we know about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's not somebody that's been a fierce ally of President Trump's. He has voted against the president's agenda on some issues. He says he read the Mueller report and came to the conclusion that the president's behavior and conduct and actions has reached the threshold of impeachment. The president could have let this go, but Kimberly, no surprise, he did not, and tweeted over the weekend that Amash is a lightweight. He's somebody that's not one of them. He's not one of his supporters, and that Amash is doing this just to get himself more publicity. But he did. The president tweeting it out to nearly 60 million people certainly gives him that publicity.
All right.
Yeah, Justin Amash, I support his effort to break ranks with the Republicans. I think more Republicans will fall in line. We'll be getting an impeachment quorum pretty soon, as we realize that Donald Trump is behaving more and more like a guilty person. And the harder the Republicans are trying to suppress this information, the more they look like they're obstructing. Because the media and the people of America have not seen the unredacted report, and because Trump won't release it, and because the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin won't release any type of financial records, all these indictments, all these contempt charges are going forward. Felonies will be flying. You're going to see people arrested in the Trump cabinet. That's coming. Okay, Ted Cruz is furious about Jim Carrey's latest cartoon on the Alabama abortion law. Okay, let's take a look at what Jim Carrey did regarding the Alabama abortion law, which I think is unconstitutional, especially in lieu of Roe v. Wade. Okay, here's one of the sentences that makes you shake your head at the surrealism. Texas senator and yeah. Okay, I'm not sure what that's all about. He's publicly feuding with Jim Carrey over the latest in Carrey's ongoing series of politically fueled paintings. This isn't the first time Carrey's incendiary cartoon-style renderings of right-wing politicians have caused a public scene. You might recall his work on Donald Trump and Benito Mussolini. This is the thing he uploaded. Depicts the late-term abortion of Alabama Governor Kay Ivey. Okay. So apparently, apparently Jim Carrey feels that Kay Ivey should have been aborted late term. I think she should be arrested. I think the governor should be arrested for violating our national law. I wouldn't have a problem with arresting her and sending the National Guard in around every Planned Parenthood facility, opening the doors to any woman that wants to look at an abortion. But I'm not that pro-choice. I am pro-choice, but I'm not that far off the deep end. I actually was the guy that came up with the ultrasound idea, which I embraced. I brought it up at Liberty Radio back in 2010, I believe. I talked about how abortions could be prevented, possibly, by using ultrasound, at a low-cost ultrasound at the Planned Parenthood locations. It would be well within the cost of an ultrasound portable device to invest and not charge for each use. Just put that at the location and train the people there to use it. If a woman's going to go in for an abortion, sure as hell should have an ultrasound to see the beating heart of her baby. I mean, my goodness. And I support that idea because it's mine. But Jim Carrey definitely, he's welcome to do whatever he wants. He doesn't exist anymore. He told everyone he doesn't exist, so yeah. It's kind of hard to not exist and still paint, but I guess he's doing it. Now, the rhetoric from China is so strong that they have actually removed, a Chinese TV station has removed U.S.-made films and runs classic anti-U.S. war flicks instead now. Hello? It's weird. No, I don't want to take that link to the transgender boy. Thanks, Patoro, but we're not featuring transgenders tonight in our show. Thanks. Well, Trump has got some issues, I'll tell you. Diverting our attention and threatening a war with Iran and causing nothing but problems with China is not exactly healthy for our economy. Let's see what the stock market did today. Another one bites the dust. Hey. Minus 84. Monday started out of the gate in a downturn. 25,679 for today's ticker. Yes, it was a rocky day on Wall Street. Down initially. Up, 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 up. Down, down, down. Up again and down. All right. So down 84. Not a big deal. Thank you. I don't think the stock market really talks about our economy. Do I look like Jim Carrey? That's ridiculous. We've been over this before. You keep saying that. And I don't look like the aging Jim Carrey. No. Unlike Jim Carrey, I don't have that significantly Jewish nose that he has. See? See, I don't have that dip in my nose right here. That's the significant difference between us. And there's nothing wrong with it. I think that's perfectly fine that people have dips in their nose. You know, it doesn't really matter, but I mean, it's just indicative of that I am not Jim Carrey. Unless, of course, I have so much money that I had my face changed. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you make a lot of money on your oil paintings, you don't have to be Jim Carrey, do you? You can not exist. Become someone else. Oh, sorry. No, I'm not Jim Carrey. See, you see, it's the same. No, I'm not Brienne of Tarth either. You know that, and that's accusing me of being a transgender. Okay? And I'm not. I think it's ridiculous to make these assumptions that I am this woman in a movie. It's ridiculous. There's no way. I mean, I don't even look like Brienne of Tarth. Game of Thrones and their epic season coming up The mainstream was talking about it today. Yeah, I don't look a bit like this woman. It's absurd to think that I look like this person. Okay, I see a slight resemblance, but only slight. Okay, moving on. Yes, I think we have to talk about something else because this is getting boring. I have to change this entire subject now. I have to bring in my music in my video. Let's pick a random stinger here. Okay, I don't think that was the same guy. Remember James Holmes in the Aurora, Colorado shooting? That's not the same guy. They faked us out. They've been doing that with a lot of these false flag events that have happened. That particular shooting was one of the first that we had to deal with 10 years ago on our show. And that shooting in Aurora, Colorado shooting, everybody had a video camera on their phone, and there were numerous people that had video of the shooting itself, but not one videotape was allowed in as evidence in the James Holmes trial, which was a sealed trial, was not open to the public. Very strange, very suspicious. And they replaced the guy James Holmes. The original James Holmes was working for DARPA. His parents worked for DOD, Department of Defense. James Holmes, the original one. Oh, my younger twin was at Social Security office today, last Friday, really? Wow. You should have taken a picture of him. Oh my God, a major stabbing in Salisbury last night. Oh, Anita, are you okay? The man was airlifted to hospital after the Salisbury knifing. As you know, England banned guns and now they just knife each other. Shows you how stupid gun control is. The victim suffered multiple puncture wounds and a man has been arrested. Catherine Street has been sealed off this evening with a cordon placed around Charlie's store. Police were called to the street at around 8:40 p.m. A man in his 40s had suffered multiple puncture wounds and was airlifted to Southampton General Hospital in serious condition. Thank you, Anita. We'll get back to you later. Thank you. Hopefully the knifings won't continue. Not John Holmes, serial killer, James Holmes. I had a chance to see John Holmes. I was in a parking lot at a gas station and at the airport, and John Holmes came out of the Pussycat, I think it was a theater or like an arcade or something, and he looked right at me. You know John Holmes, the actor that died of AIDS? Oh, thank you, really. That's so nice of you to compliment my English voice. I hear it's terrible. Oh, Washington State has banned ICE from using their private airport? That's a good thing. Yeah, immigration and customs enforcement using private airports. It's like, where are they getting off violating state law? No, John Holmes, I think, he'd become gay at the end of his life there. And I think he was like looking at me because all the gay guys looked at me. Rock Hudson looked at me. And I'm not gay, and it's really disturbing to hear gay guys, do this thing where they see every heterosexual as a person that they can somehow convert to homosexuality. I find that very disturbing, and it's sexual harassment is what it is. Yeah, Peter North looked at me too. It's weird. I saw him at a Denny's at 3 a.m. I was with a friend of mine. It's like 1:30 in the morning at a Denny's in Van Nuys, and Peter North was staring at me too. It's like, why do these people do that? Rock Hudson, yeah. Well, right before Rock Hudson died, about 6 weeks before he passed away, I saw him next to me. Practically could, smell him next to me. It was weird. It's like I turned around. I was walking outside of the store I was working at, and I turned around. It's like, whew, this ancient old man near death who looked like a famous star at one time. I had to do a triple take on it and look at him 3 times before I realized this guy was nearly dying. And it was Rock Hudson. And he was staring at me as well. And he had his little boy toy with him who won the palimony suit in his final years. He inherited everything. It was like, no, he was like weird. It was like, it's like I had this weird living, dying person walk right next to me. And it was Rock Hudson. It's just, I was freaked out. And he was looking at me like a gay man would. So I've always been harassed by homosexual men because I guess they like blonde guys or something. And I had a girlfriend back in the 80s who was technically called a fag hag. I don't know if you ever heard that term. It's a woman who likes cigarettes in England. She really enjoys smoking some fag. No, I'm not. But the point is, she liked to parade me around to all her gay friends. And I finally realized this woman was a fag hag. And that's the term they call them in Hollywood. They're women that just loved gay men for some reason. Anyway, I broke up with her, thankfully. No, I'm not gay, but these people who are sexually harassing people like me. And I'm very upset about it. That's why the 3-strike law in the military will be enforced. Let's find out what the other stinger is. Okay, let's prosecute the Clintons. How come we're not getting anywhere with Trump? Clearly, Trump is working for the deep state. Anyone who says that he's not is clearly out to lunch. He hasn't prosecuted Hillary Clinton. He hasn't gone after the Haitian money that the Clintons got, $5.4 billion in donations. Hardly any of it went to the Haitian people, only less than half of 1%. So why aren't we prosecuting Clintons? And let's talk about chemtrails, shall we? Conspiracy Monday does talk about chemtrails. They are being dispersed out of planes, like this one. And you can see it's just an endless spray upon our land, and nobody's doing anything to stop it in the two-party system. I'm one of the few people who's outspoken about chemtrails and more than willing to talk about them. But if we don't get an awareness for what's happening in the air, they're trying to trigger global climate change rather quickly. And that's what's been happening. They're triggering global climate change with this chemical activity in the air. Oh, well, that's nice. He's praying. Pray for himself, too. Thank you for saying that. But the bottom line is, I am not going to violate our relations with other countries like China, like Trump is.
You go over to China. China. You take China. China. I love them. China. I have to have my China. China because China.
You know, I tried to sell some China from, it was actually French Indonesian China. I sold it was from the 1920s. I tried to sell this China. Nobody wanted it. It was unbelievable. Nobody buys old China anymore. I mean, if you want to buy a brand new set for your wedding, it's expensive. It's super expensive. But if you want to get an old antique set for your wedding, it's cheap. It's unbelievably cheap. I could not get more than $1 a plate for this 1920s French Indonesian China. I finally ended up selling it. Somebody got it. And I'll never forget, the shipping charge on it was like $50. I didn't even break even. I mean, I think I made $1 a plate when I finally sold them. Yeah. What caused the Great Depression? Tariffs. Some say it was the spark that caused the World War II's tariffs. Yeah. Tariffs could oftentimes trigger a big downturn in an economy. That's why I was so amazed that Trump was so flippant with tariffs. I'm convinced that tariffs overall are bad for our economy. At one point, I was talking about an ecological tariff to try to negotiate with China about getting environmental controls. But if it causes this much of a rift, I think we both have to move toward environmental controls where we just tell companies that not to buy things unless they have a solution for putting that product in the ground or safely getting it to the final resting place in a dump. But we don't have that provision right now. So something to prevent massive landfills from forming. But frankly, we're a big abuser of landfills in America. Part of the problem in the Pacific Gyre, or the ocean, the garbage patch out in the ocean, is all the plastic waste that we acquire as a conspicuous consumer economy. So we are responsible for a lot of that, and I take it seriously. I plan on doing something like that plan to put a boom out there and filter plastic out of the ocean. Boyan Slat has that plan. I would be more than willing to give a government contract to Boyan Slat to do that. I really would. No, I didn't clean up my studio yesterday. I worked on my compost heap today. I finally put all my compost in the soil, and I topped it off, and I'm going to plant some potatoes for the summer. I figured I might as well use this compost that's been sitting there for years. It was good. It was a good feeling to, get out there and get my hands dirty and push the soil. Working with soil makes you feel better. Had a good weekend. Yeah. I have an Abe Lincoln cabin on my... Thanks, RB. I have an Abe Lincoln cabin in my property, very similar to what Abe Lincoln grew up in. It was grandfathered in when we got this property. It was property that it was here since the 1930s, so it's kind of a cool classic cabin. It looks just like Abe Lincoln had grown in it. And I love being in nature, and I really love this property I'm on. The problem is I don't like the jets that are flying over my head every day. Well, I clean my fingers with water. But the jets are a real problem. And I told Sarah that, we're going to be doing everything we can to soundproof this house. I did a second layer on my roof, and now I'm rethinking the whole roof entirely. So we're going to be doing something even stronger. I don't want to hear the jet noise, and I don't want it to fracture my liver when I'm sitting in my house. So if I can stay inside during those times when the jets are being used, they're literally flying over my house at 100 to 300 feet. They're supposed to be 500 feet, but for some reason they're strafing our house every day. Yeah, you guys hear it in the show a lot. Today's been a mild day. We haven't had more than a few, so I was out working in the compost heap. I only had to run into the house twice. I literally run in. Jet engine decibels will stimulate plant growth. I don't believe that. That's BS. That's a crock of crap. Show me the evidence of that, Jack. Go ahead and show me, Jack. You can't handle the truth. Okay, the Trump administration has already built its case for Iran war. Wow. Okay, so he's going in. Last week he was threatening this and that, and U.S. officials' words and actions suggest they may turn to the 2001 use of force resolution as justification to bypass Congress. So John Bolton he's already done it with the Iraq and Afghanistan war. He wants to start a war with Iran now. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine this guy? I mean, he needs to go out to the pasture at 70 years old. I mean, this guy is outworn his welcome. He's an original warmonger, and he's our national security advisor, and he's leading us toward another war with Iran. Nice. Trump may not need Congress to go to war with Iran. That's the case as lieutenants have been quietly building as tensions between the two nations have escalated, all because of Trump, by the way. I think he's using this as a way to divert our attention. It's a simple plan, really. Trump diversions. Hey, we'll talk about the 1,000-mile container fence tonight. Let's just mention it. I do have a great idea that we put together. The original 1,000-mile fence is my idea, but in 2008, I came up with the number of miles we need to cross, the barrier that we need to prevent people from sneaking into our country. And I've got the price down to $1 billion. I could probably sell it to any Democrat out there just because we need something to prevent our nation from this ongoing sanctuary city problem that Trump is utilizing. He's making money profiting from all the immigrants he's transporting to sanctuary cities now, just like Obama would have. He's no different than Obama that way. So Trump has taken my idea of the 1,000-mile fence, called it a wall. We're going to make a wall, a beautiful wall. It's going to be incredible. What do you mean? How are you going to pay for it? Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, in fact, we're going to be paying Mexico if Trump gets his way. He has a company, a Mexican firm called CEMEX, that wants the contract. So we'll end up paying Mexico for it. So he got that wrong. Mexico's not going to pay for it. We're going to pay Mexico for it. You know, I don't know if Pamela Sue Anderson is doing, cameos. I have no idea what to say about that. Yeah. I think Sarah would be jealous if I invited her to my house. Of course, Sarah doesn't get jealous, but I mean, the whole idea of who would invite Pamela Sue Anderson to their house, right? I think a bomb shelter would be better than a roof. Really? Well, bingo. Bomb shelters, that's a side note. A roof makes more sense from the constancy of living in a house and not being under the major 120 decibels that fly over my house. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to put a better roof in. That's definitely the goal. Whew. Big stuff came in the show last night. Or excuse me, on Saturday night. This tweet, or this Reddit post, came from Misanthropy. And he said that, it says here, if you choose to not connect your Samsung Smart TV to Wi-Fi, it will secretly connect to your neighbor's passwordless Wi-Fi. Isn't that hilarious? So I just had a rather annoying experience. I own 2 smart TVs, Samsung, which honestly gave me the heebie-jeebies to purchase. With that said, at the end of the day, I decided that as long as I didn't hook it up to the net, I'd be good to go. I've been using them for a few years and have felt pretty comfortable with the situation. So imagine my surprise when I sit down to watch something on the living room TV, which I don't use all that often, and my show is interrupted by a notification that SmartHub had updated. SmartHub had updated. After digging around in settings for a moment, I realized that one of my next door neighbors had installed an open router with the internet, and my TV had silently automatically connected to it and began doing its normal internet stuff. I have no idea how long it was connected like that. Now, smart TVs, they say, have cameras in the pixels. And you won't get anybody on a TV sale to admit this. I've asked numerous salespeople, do these pixels have cameras in them? A camera can be the size of a pixel on a screen. That's how small camera technology is. Just like you can use a stereo speaker and a headphone as a microphone. They can actually see what's on the other side in the TV set that's delivering a pixel. Yeah. Okay. Summertime makes you feel good. That's good. Yeah, no one likes to get the winter blues. That's for sure. So that's a pretty amazing Reddit post that Misanthropy sent me about this smart TVs that are actually accessing the internet on a free Wi-Fi router. We haven't purchased a new TV since the smart TVs came on board. We bought a few old TVs now. They're LEDs, but they're not ULEDs. They're not the high-end ones. Anyway, I told Sarah if I get a new TV, I'm going to get a DLP projector TV or something. Yeah, something like a full wall. Make your home a theater. Okay, the Trump administration is making money transporting migrants from border to other U.S. cities. I just talked about that. Yeah. From border, yeah. So they're using the same concept that Obama came up with, sanctuary cities. They're using this as a way of sending the overload of immigrants now coming to the border because Trump didn't build the fence. He's doing exactly what Obama would have done. And then the weird thing is Trump actually claims it's his idea. Can you imagine? He's bragging about coming up with the idea to send them to sanctuary cities. He acts like that's a win-win, when his own core supporters didn't want that to start with. This guy is completely lost. It's pathetic, actually. Russian documents revealed desire to sow racial discord and violence in the USA. Wow. So talk about meddling in our election. Now NBC News has this story. The revelations come as U.S. intelligence agencies have warned of probable Russian meddling at the 2020 election. Wow. And Trump won't even discuss this with Putin, who he talks privately with. Totally. Fake as total. Yeah, Reptoid. Yevgeny Prigozhin is at a meeting between Russia and Turkish officials, business leaders in 2016. Russians linked to the interference to the 2016 U.S. election discussed ambitious plans to stoke unrest and even violence inside the U.S. as recently as 2018, according to documents reviewed by the NBC News. The documents communications between associates of Yevgeny Prigozhin, a Kremlin-linked oligarch indicted by special counsel Robert Mueller for previous influence operations against the U.S., laid out a new plot to manipulate and radicalize African Americans. The plans show that Prigozhin's circle has sought to exploit racial tensions well beyond Russia's social media and misinformation efforts tied to the 2016 election. Wow. The documents were obtained through the Dossier Center, a London-based investigative project funded by the Russian opposition figure. Okay, wow, this is pretty interesting. Yeah, turmeric will stain the hell out of your countertops, yo. You know, I heard turmeric works for your teeth. You can actually brush your teeth with it and actually makes your teeth whiter. And it's probably good for you. But yeah, something yellow you'd think would stain your teeth. That's what I'm just wondering if it's really true or they're just trying to make people have yellow teeth. No, Russian interference is big. Yeah. Oh yeah, Master Meatballs, you're so lost. You're one of those people that call it all a Russian hoax. We have proved it. I've got well over hundreds of links out there. I've got an entire library on Russian involvement. If you want to go to my 153 News site and review my notes, you can check out 153news.net third party. I posted Total Collusion 1 and Total Collusion 2. Take a look at all those ads there on our 2 videos that are posted. And get back to me and then tell me there's no collusion. I've got more than enough evidence of collusion and obstruction by Donald Trump. Unbelievable. Okay, picking up on some notes. Oh, yes. John F. Kennedy was assassinated, of course, many years ago, but many people didn't realize that on May 18th, way ahead of the assassination in November, on May 18th, 1963, John F. Kennedy was sending a telegram to the embassy in Israel. Here's a copy of the telegram. Dear my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Dear Mr. Prime Minister, I welcome your letter of May 12th, and I'm giving it a careful study. Meanwhile, I have received from Ambassador Barber a report of his conversation with you on May 14th regarding the arrangements for visiting the Dimona reactor. I should like to add some personal comments on that subject. I'm sure you will agree that there's more urgent business for the whole world than the control of nuclear weapons.
Oh, David, you should check this out.
We have a deer back there?
Backyard. Did you see that?
Is it a deer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw him earlier.
Now you're looking straight at me.
We're living in an enchanted forest where the deers roam free in our backyard. It's amazing.
I think it's saying to its friends, you should check this out. There's a human staring at me.
We have deers living in our backyard. I mean, we love it here. We really do. We're right immersed in nature. It's the most beautiful, beatific place ever.
But human is so interesting in their house.
Yeah, they're looking at us, and we're the caged animals. And they're looking at us going, oh, look at the humans.
Look at the humans in the zoo.
I know. I could never kill an animal like that unless I was really, really hungry. I mean, really hungry.
Well, once a month I would get angry enough to kill them.
When
I need red meat.
Exactly. We did not in any way...
Actually, let me get a different issue.
Yeah, take your time. Deer is natural here. We have a indigenous population of deer dating back hundreds of years on the island. Okay, hundreds of respected scientists sound alarm about the health effects as the 5G networks go global. Thank goodness hundreds of scientists are speaking out, but there's a big conspiracy out there that they've been killing off scientists as fast as they talk about the dangers. Yeah. I did not invent the pencil sharpener. My family invented the spoon. We were the home of the Spahn, the wood chip, the spoon. Spoonheim. That's the name in German. 5G danger. Wow. Even though many in the scientific community are loudly warning about the potential health effects that 5G technology could have on the general population, Verizon and AT&T are starting to put their 5G networks in major cities all across the nation. So no serious studies have been done on the safety, and the ones overseas show dangers. They put up a 5G mast in The Hague recently in the Netherlands, and 300 birds dropped out of the sky. Sarah's going to come in and hang out.
Sorry, I'm so late.
That's okay. I'm glad you took a little break. You can come in anytime in the evening. Yeah, spoon in German is Löffel. Yeah, now it is. But in the old days, they ate out of the word Spahn, which means wood chip. And my name was derived from wood chips because they used to use carved wood chips to eat food, spoons. Yes. Here's Sarah.
Here I am. Although, even though many of the scientific community are loudly warning about the potential health effects that 5G technology could have on the general population, Verizon and AT&T are starting to put up their 5G networks in major cities all across the nation. Today, the total number of cell phones exceeds the entire population of the world. That's because many people actually have 2 cell phones. And the big cell phone companies are making a crazy amount of money providing services to all those phones. And now there's the next generation of cell phone technology. The next generation of cell phone technology has arrived. Millions of cell phone users are looking forward to better connections and faster speeds than ever before. In fact, President Trump says that 5G networks will be up to 100 times faster than current 4G networks that we're using right now. 5G will be as much as 100 times faster than the current 4G cellular networks. It will transform the way our citizens work, learn, communicate, and travel. It will make American farms more productive, American manufacturing more competitive, and American healthcare better and more accessible. Basically, it covers almost everything. When you get right down to it, pretty amazing. And just as 4G networks paved the way for smartphones and all the exciting breakthroughs they made possible so many things, this will be more secure and resilient. 5G networks will also create astonishing and really thrilling new opportunities for our people. Opportunities we've never even thought we had a possibility of looking at. Hello, Sunstar. Hello, Reptoid. Hello, Tabasco Sauce. Oh, wait, you're saying hi to Sunstar. All right. Sarah, did David ever start a 4th party? No. Spoon in German is Löffel. Okay. Sounds great, right? Yes. But in order to achieve such vast superior performance, 5G networks will use technology that is completely different from 4G networks. 5G waves are ultra high frequency and ultra high intensity, but they are also easily absorbed by objects such as buildings and trees. So although cell towers will be much, much smaller, they will also have to be much, much closer than ever before. Although
they need every 200 yards, they need to bump the signal too. Every 200 yards, they have to bump the signal. It's weird. It's just a heavy signal.
I don't drink coffee. When I did drink coffee, Senka was not my favorite. According to CBS News, it is estimated that the big cell phone companies will be putting up at least 300,000 of these small towers. It's been projected that it will cost hundreds of billions of dollars to fully set up the 5G network nationwide. Wait, so if they're small cell towers, What are those big, huge copper towers that David was talking about? I'm confused. All right. Needless to say, there's a tremendous amount of money at stake, and the big cell phone companies are trying very hard to assure everyone that 5G technology is completely safe. But is it? Dun, dun, dun! All right. Today, there is a growing body of scientific evidence that indicates the electromagnetic radiation that we are constantly being bombarded with is not good for us. Hundreds of scientists that are engaged in research in this area have signed the International EMF Scientist Appeal. And this is how the document begins. No, I'm not. I'm just reading. That's how I read. I'm pretty good at reading. We are scientists engaged in the study of biological and health effects of non-ionizing electromagnetic fields, EMF. Based upon peer-reviewed published research, we have serious concerns regarding the ubiquity and increasing exposure to EMF generated by electric and wireless devices. These include, but are not limited to, radio frequency radiation, RFR, emitting devices such as cellular and cordless phones and their base stations, Wi-Fi, broadcast antennas, smart meters, and baby monitors, as well as electric devices and infrastructures used in the delivery of electricity that generate extremely low frequency electromagnetic field, ELF, EMF. What are you talking about, Ping? It's called, yes. What do you mean? All right, no, I have my hair. In the next paragraph, we're told that cancer risk, genetic damages, functional changes of the reproductive system, and neurological disorders are some of the health risks that have been discovered by the scientific research that has been conducted so far. Numerous recent scientific publications have shown that EMF affects living organisms at levels well below most international and national guidelines. Effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increased in harmful free radicals, genetic damages, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on general well-being in humans. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there is growing evidence of harmful effects to both plant and animal life. No Tabasco sauce, but will I get it? All right. And remember, 5G technology is going to take all of this to an entirely new level. A whole nother level, if you will. By the way, I'm reading from Zero Hedge, and the article is called 5G Danger. Hundreds of respected scientists sound alarm about health effects as 5G networks go global, and it is written by Tyler Durden. We use different shampoos, I believe. And we have different genetic material. A whole nother level. All right, moving on. Because the 5G towers are going to be so powerful and so close together, it will essentially be like living in a closed radiation chamber 24 hours a day. Over in Israel, one scientist has discovered that the surface of the human body actually draws in 5G radiation like an antenna. What's further disturbing about 5G radiation is how the human body responds to and processes it. Dr. Ben Ashai from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem discovered as part of a recent investigation that human skin acts as a type of receptor for 5G radiation, drawing it in like an antenna. This kind of technology, which is in many of our homes, actually interacts with human skin and eyes, writes Arjun Walia for Collective Evolution about the study. Human sweat ducts act like a number of helical antennas when exposed to these wavelengths that are put out by the devices that employ 5G technology, he adds. Yeah, I do kind of think we will evolve. Well, I have a full month left. Some people, it's going to be ending, school ends sooner than for me. We go all the way until June 20th. Maybe, Ping, maybe. In other words, our bodies are essentially magnets for 5G radiation. So, will it be worth it? Will you be willing to risk your life in order to have better connection and faster speeds? Sure, your phone will be more useful than ever before, but there's also the possibility that you could get cancer. Even the American Cancer Society acknowledged the risk. A recent large study by the U.S. National Toxicology Report Program, NTP, exposed a large group of lab rats and mice to RF energy over their entire bodies for about 9 hours a day, starting before birth and continuing for up to 2 years, which is the equivalent of about 70 years for humans. According to NTP scientists, the study found an increased risk of tumors called malignant schwannomas of the heart in male rats exposed to RF radiation, as well as possible increased risk for certain types of tumor in the brain and adrenal glands. Is it only affecting males, mice, or does it also affect women? You saw an experiment growing sprouts next to a router, and the sprouts next to the router died? Wow, Reptoid. Hello, other one. Hopefully you and Scissor Fight are having a good night. Of course, all previous studies have been done on existing cell phone technology. No studies have been done on the health effects of our new ultra-powerful 5G technology, and this has scientists extremely concerned. Again, no studies have been done on the health effects of 5G technology. None. No studies have been done on 5G technology. I have to say that again. Anyway, which has many scientists extremely concerned. But, all right. Dr. Martin Pall, a PhD and a professor emeritus of biochemistry and basic medical sciences at Washington State University, says that rolling out 5G without any safety testing whatsoever has got to be the stupidest idea anyone has had in the history of the world. Unfortunately, there is no organized opposition, and 5G networks are going up all over the country right now. So it won't be too long before you're being bombarded by ultra high frequency and ultra high intensity cell phone radiation wherever you go, and most people won't even realize what is happening. And if you do get sick, the cell phone companies sure aren't going to pay the bill. All right.
I never thought I'd be the guy that I've become that's about to talk.
But I've heard with 5G, they're going to be smaller, and it's not going to that it's not going to penetrate the skin as much as like other radiation. I don't know, anyway. That's what I've heard. So I would be willing to be part of the testing phase, but of course David won't. So, and I live with David, so that wouldn't work. I completely disagree. I actually think that even after reading that article, I still think that it'll be fine, Frank, fine. AT&T expands mobile 5G rollout with 7 new cities. The total rises to 19. Chicago and Minneapolis. Austin, Los Angeles, Nashville, Orlando, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose. But users in the areas are currently not able to use any 5G phones on the new network. They only offer one device, the Netgear Nighthawk 5G mobile Wi-Fi hotspot. Sprint is going to have 5G networks in Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, and Kansas City this month. They are going to launch with LG's new V50 ThinQ 5G. T-Mobile will launch, but it has yet to announce the launch exact timing or launch cities. .5GE logo is increasingly appearing on more 5G LTE AT&T phones, but that the new network is based on what is accepted as actual 5G. Last December, AT&T turned on mobile 5G in its first 12 cities. When it launched in December, it charged $70 a month for 15 gigabytes of 5G hotspot data. Okay. Right now, the first wave of 5G is called mmWave, millimeter wave. A second 5G technology known as Sub-6 will be rolled out later this year and can work in tandem with millimeter wave. AT&T's second Samsung, so they say even wait because the first phones and devices like the Galaxy S10 5G will only be capable of connecting to the millimeter wave 5G network, and they'll lack the necessary chip to tap into the larger Sub-6 network that's coming, and it'll prevent you from getting the full 5G experience. Their second 5G phone is due out later this year, and it'll support both. Yes, okay, I read a lot about 5G. But here's the thing, like, I agree. Okay. I like this. I'm going to pull this in. What are 5G millimeter waves? So far, carriers have been using spectrum bands anywhere from 600 megahertz to 2.6 gigahertz to deliver the goods to us. This is the low end of the microwave range. With 5G, however, some way higher frequency bands will be opened for service, including the so-called millimeter waves, which you might have heard of. To be clear, some lower frequency spectrum like T-Mobile 600 megahertz or Sprint's 2.5 gigahertz will also be utilized for 5G transmissions, but carriers will increasingly be taking advantage of higher bands such as 3.5 gigahertz or 6 gigahertz and even 30 gigahertz and up. 30 gigahertz sounds too much. That's where those millimeter waves actually begin. While we still don't know exactly what bands AT&T, Netgear's Nighthawk 5G hotspots work on, they said the device will be using millimeter waves. Are these 5G millimeter waves safe? They say the reality is these waves won't be nearly powerful enough to do us any harm. There are electromagnetic waves of unbelievable higher frequency out there. Beyond a certain threshold, they do become dangerous to living things. That's higher than 30 gigahertz or even 300 gigahertz. Okay, so here's some waves. Wait. They don't tell us where on here where the waves are. So they're basically microwaves. I think. That is interesting. So they are definitely microwaves. Microwaves, like the kinds of microwave ovens, like all right, moving on. Here's another one. I'm glad they're actually putting this out there. Well, because I like to see both sides. Some say 5G will cause cancer, but here's why scientists say we do not need to worry. If you are being exposed to radiation right now, it's coming at you from space, it's coming at you from the soil, it's coming at you from water and food. Your body itself is radioactive. You're being exposed to microwaves and radio waves, both natural and human-made.
You're being exposed.
I'll just leave that there. Leave that there.
So what's been up? What's going on?
Oh, I'm just looking at examples.
Oh, the 5G network? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we have some pretty interesting footage of Tom Wheeler talking about the 5G network. And he's a real big proponent. Remember, he was at that conference we went to in Sacramento? Yeah, he's a big supporter of it. And I just don't, I mean, I see how it could be good for American business, and I can see why there's a big war now between Huawei and the Western 5G producers. It seems like there's a trade war between those two, starting like today. Google just said they weren't going to cooperate with Huawei,
Yeah.
and they're going to be working against them. So it's like Asia internet is in direct conflict with the U.S. and Western internet.
If cell phones increase brain cancer by even 1%, there would be an increase of 40 million cases, which we're not seeing.
We are among children. The early onset brain cancer is now the #1 killer of cancers among children. So we have seen a higher incidence of brain cancer among children, and they're the most susceptible group.
Okay.
The incidence of deaths among workers in the telecommunication agent areas is 50%, almost 50% of the workers are dying from brain disorders. So there's definitely an effect, and they've ID'd the effect of the RF frequencies on the body itself. They've hooked up people to EKGs standing next to microwave ovens, and it definitely affects the heart rhythm. There's a slight effect, so we know that in real time. You can spot a microwave. You don't want to stand next to a microwave if you can avoid it. So I think just erring on the side of caution is what we should be doing. We should have a general attitude toward caution, and I don't even see the need for the 5G network in lieu of the 4G bands that are currently operating at 4K levels. Everyone's getting video very well on their phones. Well, what do we even need 5G for? And they haven't even used the full spectrum that was opened up when the analog channels were retired out in TV. So why aren't they even using that spectrum? What's going on with that?
Yeah, you're fine, Ace Spade. You've been cooking with the microwave all your life. You're fine. Okay. Well, cancer.gov about cancer causes, prevention, risk, radiation, cell phones, fact sheet. Let's see if it'll actually open. In the United States, 23,820 new diagnoses and 17,760 deaths from brain and other central nervous system cancers are estimated for 2019. Brain cancer incidents have declined slightly in recent years, and mortality death rates have increased slightly. There's a great variability in survival by brain tumor subtype and by age at diagnoses. Overall, the 5-year relative survival for brain cancers diagnosed from 2018 through 2014 was 33%. This is the percentage of people diagnosed with brain cancer who will still be alive 5 years after diagnosis, compared with the survival of the person of the same age and same sex who does not have cancer. The risk of developing brain cancer increases with age. From 2011 to 2015, there were fewer than 4.5 brain cancer cases for every 100,000 people in the United States under age 65, compared with approximately 19 cases for every 100,000 people in the United States who were ages 65 or older. Cancer incidence rates have actually declined, even though mortality rates have gone up. Has radio frequency radiation from cell phone use been associated with cancer risk in children? There are theoretical considerations as to why the possible risk should be investigated separately in children, Their nervous systems are still developing and therefore more vulnerable to factors that may cause cancer. Their heads are smaller than those of adults and consequently have a greater proportional exposure to the field of radio frequency radiation that's emitted by cell phones, and children have the potential of accumulating more years of cell phone exposure than adults. Thus far, the data from studies in children with cancer do not support this theory. The first published analysis came from a large case-controlled study called CEFALO, which was conducted in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Switzerland. The study included children who were diagnosed with brain tumors between 2004 and 2008, when their ages ranged from 7 to 19 years.
That's an old study. I mean, that's like 10 years old, 15 years old. You know, recent studies have found that the kids don't even have REM cycles if they hold a cell phone next to their head before they go to bed. I've got numerous videos I can show you verifying this. The REM cycles are interrupted by cell phone activity. So if your kid is holding a cell phone next to their head when they're going to bed, that'll affect their sleep pattern.
I was trying to find that World Health Organization. I'll type that in. Okay, here's one from the World Health Organization: electronic fields and public health mobile phones. Mobile phone use is ubiquitous at 6.9 billion subscriptions globally. They're classified as possibly carcinogenic. Studies are ongoing to more fully assess potential long-term effects. And they did conduct a formal risk assessment of all studied health outcomes from radio frequency fields exposure by 2016. To date, a large number of studies have been performed over the last 2 decades to assess whether mobile phones pose a potential health risk. To date, no adverse health effects have been established as being caused by mobile phone use. To date, research does not suggest any consistent evidence of adverse health effects from exposure to radio frequency fields at levels below those that cause tissue heating. Further research has not been able to provide support for causal relationship between exposure to electromagnetic fields and self-reported symptoms or electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Because many cancers are not detectable until many years after the interactions that led to the tumor, mobile phones were not widely used until the early 90s. Epidemiological studies at present can only assess cancers that become evident within shorter time periods. Results of animal studies consistently show no increased cancer risk for long-term exposure to radio frequency fields. no increased risk of glioma or meningioma with mobile phone use of more than 10 years. There are some indications of an increased risk of glioma for those who reported the highest 10% of cumulative hours of cell phone use. But although there was no consistent trend of increasing risk with greater duration of use. The researchers concluded that biases and errors limit the strength of these conclusions and prevent a causal interpretation.
Yeah, and let's not forget that San Diego, University of San Francisco, or San Diego, University of San Diego, not the UC San Diego, but University of San Diego, there's a cell phone tower within a short distance of an area that had a high number of deaths in a very close proximity to the cell phone tower. All the students that graduated there are dying left and right. And they've identified a connection between the cell tower and the high propensity for people to get brain cancer. So there definitely is a connection. But what that connection is an area of scientific mystery. But I say err on the side of caution in dealing with new technology and new dangerous chemicals and things like that. I think we need to really be careful, and I think run a lot of tests before we do anything. Hey, thank you. This is a Huntington. Yes. Well, thank you, Sarah, for reading about that. We'll look into alternative views as well. It's good to have alternative views, Not to freak out everybody, I don't want everyone to freak out, but cell phones...
Basically, I read the whole World Health Organization thing, and
Right.
There's actually not all the studies they've found.
Right.
There was one study, and they said with that study, there may have been biases in the study.
That's
who
true, but
created the
then
study.
again, why did the...
Whereas all the other ones are no.
No, I know the official word of the World Health Organization says that not to worry. But the director of the World Health Organization has openly stated publicly in front of the media that cell phones contribute to brain cancer. They have a connection. What that connection is remains a mystery. But again, when the director of the World Health Organization has stated that,
And when our president says things, I should listen to him too. No.
he actually endorses the 5G network, and I cannot possibly endorse it without safeguards. I'm talking about putting together a 5G plus network, which has, having a problem with my colic here, 5G plus network that has a, there we go. I've got to pet myself. Good job, David. Yes. A safeguard, like a limiter. That's not a hairpiece. It's my real hair. Hey, I would recommend the junction boxes having Faraday cages over them so that there isn't a lot of radiant transmissions, because we're seeing from smart meters that are installed across the country, there's a lot of ambient field energy that are coming at us. I think a lot of people are concerned about this, and people who are sitting next to one of those meters in their house, yeah, I know. You might want to get your bed away from it and look online. You can find Faraday cages on eBay. They have them now. People are making these things, and they work fine. You can get your transmission of your electrical information to the company. It doesn't have a problem receiving point-to-point information sharing. And I don't know. We've taken the time to actually do that. I took the time to actually do one on my smart meter, and it's definitely better. I've seen tests. They have field radiation meters you can buy online. They're expensive. They're a couple $100, but I've seen tests where they show the radiation diminishes dramatically. Or even Mylar has a way of shielding. And metal screening, aluminum screening material has a way of shielding these types of RF frequencies. It's mostly just field radiation. But here's a guy who actually went out and made something professional has a smart meter shield radiation protection Faraday cover for his smart meter, and he wants $55 for it, you know? And I showed you guys how to make this with just common aluminum screening, that you could use a stapler and make the same thing that's just as effective. And this is a $55 value he wants to charge. But that's what people are doing, and it does minimize the field radiation, just so you know. This is not a hair piece, man. This is my real hair. These are my real follicles. Yeah. I take pride in my hair, dude. Yeah, it takes a while to actually realize that hair is important. And when you're losing it, you know, then you go to a wig. Hundreds of respected scientists sound alarm. Well, Sarah's going to look at it from both sides, which I think is good. And a lot of people are very hesitant to make any serious change in their life. But I'm erring on the side of precaution. And I'm urging people to use every amount of precaution. Holding laptops in your lap may very well be dangerous to your body. So I'm urging people to use a table. You know, and I even Sarah, I said, could you maybe get a table? And luckily I had a table in the back room for people that are sick, and I put it right over her, and her laptop's about 6 or 7 inches off of her, and it's 10, 12 inches away. And I'm just saying, hey, just be careful, you know? They call them laptops for a reason, but are they really safe? I don't know. So what the 5G network that I'm proposing will do is have limiters and on the junction boxes that would prevent large amounts of electricity from going through these lines, which could veritably turn it into a microwave oven, which I don't think would be good. Yeah. And it would be great because obviously there's a lot of electricity being moved around the air, the digital air that we're traveling through. And who knows what its effect is, really. I mean, it's all kind of a mystery. But when you feel these pulses of the 5G network, which is going to be a lot, like 10 times more than the 4G network, and you realize your brain is affected, you realize, wow, this is not cool. You know, it's like, wait a second. I don't really want my brain to be, turned into, tumor land. And apparently the cell phones, tumors are starting right above the ear, right where they're holding their phones too. It's 100 times more? Okay, Supplanto, then 100 times more dangerous than the 4G network. It's that bad. Thank you. I was trying to minimize the concern, but if you want to go to 100 times, I'm willing to jump on board that ship. So the big difference between Sarah and I is I'm more inclined to believe concerns that are not in the mainstream media, that are not supported by our EPA or CDC or EPA or FDA. I'm more than inclined to believe alternative views than Sarah is, and that's just basically a perceptual difference between the two of us. We both perceive the world differently, but we both agree on one thing, and that is our economy needs some serious help, common sense solutions for the average person, and we're not getting it with a two-party system. So we came up with ideas that really transcend any differences she and I may have, because we all have to think about our benefits and what's good for us. And right now we're not getting any benefits. We're not even getting representation by the two parties. We have a solar rooftop revolution which will create jobs, and a homestead renewal plan which will fix up houses that are falling apart and give people shovel-ready jobs to create houses as beautiful as this. We have ideas that are tangible, that you can hear and sink your mind into. Whereas the Democrats have these zealots like Ocasio-Cortez pitching the Green New Deal, which is just a reuse of an old word that turned into our bureaucracy that we have today. The Democrats want to do exactly what FDR did without actually looking at the specific programs that FDR put together. So I have plans to actually use some of the ideas FDR had